Remember, when you're in doubt of the specific color of an individual, you can always revert to your knowledge of basic human nature, the universal language of success. Make sure you go get the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and read it from cover to cover. And also the book by Les Giblin titled How to Have Power and Confidence When Dealing with People. These two books will fill you in on more of the basic human nature principles. Principles that, when applied, can definitely help you get more of what you want from life. Now, let's turn our attention to the colors. By the way, you may be wondering why I use colors to distinguish the 4 behavioral styles. It has nothing to do with how the physical colors affect a person, and it does not have anything to do with astrology or auras or anything like that. Here's the real reason why I use the 4 colors to distinguish the 4 behavioral styles. One day in 1988, I was browsing through a bookstore as I usually did when a book called Personality Plus, written by a woman named Florence Littire, caught my attention. I picked it up and started looking through it. It began explaining how we are all unique and we're all born with our own raw material that can be shaped by several situations and factors. Then she mentioned that there are 4 temperaments, and if we understood them, we would be able to appreciate ourselves and others better. I found this interesting, so I kept reading. During the first few pages, everything was going great, and I was getting more and more excited. Then, all of a sudden, she mentioned 4 words: phlegmatic, sanguine, melancholy, and choleric. You see, this was a drawback for me because I grew up in the ghetto and didn't have a clue how to pronounce these words. Well, even though I found the concept interesting, I let my inability to pronounce those 4 words stop me from pursuing the study of the behavioral styles, or temperaments, as Florence called them. I remember just letting the whole thing go. Then about 3 years later, in 1991, when I attended the seminar in Hawaii I was telling you about earlier, the 21-year-old lady who was making over $40,000 per month started talking about 4 different personality styles after she had mentioned that this was a people business. My ears perked, and I began to wait for those 4 complicated words I had heard 3 years ago, phlegmatic, sanguine, melancholy, and choleric. But as she continued, she mentioned the colors yellow, blue, green, and red. I vaguely recalled some similarities in what Florence Littire was saying in her book, Personality Plus. I figured if a 21-year-old girl who had a terrible upbringing and didn't have much education was making over $40,000 per month and saying that people skills are more important than product knowledge, then I had better work on my people skills. Well, with that, my commitment to master people skills was made, and I decided to do some more research on this personality stuff. What I discovered really got me excited. As a matter of fact, it got me so excited I couldn't hardly stand it. I found out that the information was pretty much identical. The only thing that was different was the names they used for each behavioral style. In other words, the yellow was the same as phlegmatic. The blue was the same as sanguine. The green was the same as melancholy. And the red was the same as choleric. You see, the reason I got so excited was because I thought I was stuck with that phlegmatic stuff. I couldn't hardly say that, but I could say yellow. Well, since that day in Hawaii back in 1991, I have reviewed close to 100 books, reports, videos, and tape programs that talked about behavioral styles. Let me give you a little background based on my research. The early astrologers developed the 12 zodiac signs into 4 groupings: earth, air, water, and fire. They believe that our behavior has something to do with the position of the heavens. Then, about 400 years before Jesus Christ was born, a Greek physician and philosopher by the name of Hippocrates grouped human behavior in 4 categories. By the way, he's the one that came up with those weird names that took me over 5 years just to learn how to pronounce. Phlegmatic, sanguine, melancholy, and choleric. He believed that personality was shaped by blood, phlegm, black bowel, and yellow bowel. Yeah, I know. It sounds pretty gross, huh? Well, let's continue. In 1921, Dr. Carl Jung, who many of us studied in our high school and college psychology classes, wrote a book on personality called Psychological Types. His initial motivation for his research on personality was to figure out why Sigmund Freud and himself seemed to view the world differently. His book turned out to be the most detailed and scientific work ever conducted on personality at that time. In it, he explains how people perceive, interpret, and respond to the world in different ways. He also used the 4-category model and called his styles feeler, sensor, thinker, and intuitor. Since then, literally dozens of people have used the 4 behavioral model to explain personality. Some describe it by using animals, automobiles, symbols, geometric shapes, the weather, blood types, food seasoning, and much more. The list of people who have made valuable contributions in the field of personality study numbers in the dozens. Here are just a few. Michael O'Connor, David Merrill, Roger Reed, Catherine Briggs, Isabel Briggs Myers, Tony Alexandra, Jim Cathcart, Larry Wilson, Tim LaHaye, Florence Littire, Dr. Robert Rome, William Marston, Robert Lefton, Bernice McCarthy, Lawrence Crabb, Roger Hargraves, Carl Jung, Hippocrates, and the list goes on and on. My personal thanks goes out to everyone who have made a contribution to the research and writings of the topic of personality. By the way, they have made my work a lot easier. Now, I must say for the record that yes, there are some behavioral models that goes beyond the 4 basic styles. Some break down personality styles in 9, 16, or even more categories. I never focused on those for 2 reasons. Number 1, I never wanted to spend a month trying to figure out which of the 16 personality styles a person could be. And number 2, I have found the 4 behavioral style model we will go over to be highly accurate. I would say around 90%. So with all that said and done, why have I decided to spend my time, energy, and money to put this program together for you? I mean, why don't I just give you a couple of recommendations and call it a day? Well, let me give you 2 reasons. Number 1, I'm going to break this information down so that the average layperson can understand it. In other words, I'm not coming from a scientific or technical perspective. I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. I'm just someone like you who stumbled across this stuff and got excited. Once you start to learn and use this information, I'm sure you're going to get excited as well. And number 2, even though people in all walks of life can benefit from the information contained in this tape series, I'm directing it specifically for those in network marketing. I personally know of no other author who have taken these behavioral styles and tailored it to meet the needs of network marketers. If used correctly, I know for a fact that this information can help explode your business. The bottom line is this stuff works. Now, as a networker, why should you learn this stuff? To explain this, it's important for you to understand the relationship between tension and cooperation in human relations. When 2 or more people get together, you have 2 factors present. Number 1 is tension, and number 2 is cooperation. If the tension level is high, then the cooperation level will be low. On the other hand, if the tension level is low, then the cooperation level will be high. And which do you want? Lower or higher cooperation? Come on, it's okay for you to answer, remember? Well, yeah, that's it. That's right. You want cooperation to be higher. Therefore, in developing more rewarding relationships, your mission should be to find out how you can help the other person maintain a certain degree of comfort, which is done by decreasing their tension level. If they can stay within a reasonable range of their comfort zone, you will increase rapport, which will result in increased cooperation. Now, there's 2 main reasons why this works. Number 1, people don't like change. I mean, they resist it. They would rather stay in their comfort zone. And number 2, people tend to do business with people they like, know, and trust. And studies have shown that people tend to develop rapport quicker with those who tend to be like themselves. In network marketing, the product we're marketing may be tangible or intangible. I mean, it could be anything from nutrition, skincare, education, electronics, insurance, and so on. The compensation plan could be anything from a breakaway plan, a binary plan, unilevel, matrix, Australian 2-up, or a hybrid of many plans that are available. The training could be primarily focused on business presentations, 101s or 3-way calls or direct mail and so on, with a focus on leading with the products or leading with the business even. Your company could be headquartered in the United States, Canada, Japan, Sweden, Indonesia, Australia, Malaysia, or any other of the 100 plus countries that network marketing currently operates. All of those things just mentioned are variables. They change from company to company. But the one thing you will find in all of the network marketing companies around the world, at least the ones that want to be in business, is people. This is why if you want to get good at anything when it comes to your success in network marketing, it should be people. This is where an understanding of basic human nature and of the colors will benefit you greatly in not only your network marketing business, but in life in general. Understanding the colors will give you an understanding of the languages that breed success. Remember this, when given a choice of speaking their language or someone else's language, people will always feel more comfortable speaking their primary language. You will find that if you learn to speak in the primary language of those you encounter, your connections with them will increase dramatically. And the better you become at connecting with people, the better your relationships will be with them. And your relationships with others will determine your success in life, especially in network marketing, because your long-term success in this business is built on you being able to establish productive and pleasing relationships. So let's turn our attention to the 4 basic languages that breed success. The language of the yellows, the blues, the greens, and the reds. Are you ready to find out what color you are? And then how to quickly identify the color of others? Fantastic. So join me at a live presentation in Los Angeles, California, as we discuss the colors.
So we're going to talk about an introduction to personality styles because it is so important that we understand these different languages that we have. And there are basically 4 languages that we're going to talk about, and we're going to name them yellow, blue, green, and red. And before we even get started, I want you all to understand that we are all like a rainbow. We are all like a rainbow. We all have variations of these colors within us. So don't get mad if you're thinking, oh, I'm a yellow. I don't want to be a yellow. I want to be a blue. I want to be a red. Don't get mad because each color have their strengths and their weaknesses. And each color is needed in this business. I mean, they have an important role, and we're going to be talking about that. But understand that we all have green, blue, yellow, and red in us. We all have them all. But we have a dominant color. It's just like some people know how to speak different languages, but there's a dominant language that they speak. It's the same thing when we're dealing with this concept. There's a dominant language here. There's a dominant color that we have. And that is what we're going to be talking about. So if you hear some of these things and you're thinking, man, I fall in this category, but I also fall in this. Okay, which one do you fall in most of the time? The majority of the time. Go with your first initial gut reaction. That's the one that you're really going to fall into. Don't try to sit there and think about which one do I fall into. Just go with the flow with how you're feeling. What we're going to do is we're going to end up drawing a horizontal line and a vertical line. And let's deal with the horizontal line first. We're going to have direct over here and indirect right here. Because when we're dealing with the personality styles, there are certain behavior characteristics that a person exudes that's going to determine exactly where they fall. So let's take a look at some indirect and direct behaviors. Take a quick look at some of those. I'm just going to name some things out for you, and I want you to be thinking about where you fall, either in the indirect behaviors or direct behaviors. Okay, people with indirect behaviors, they approach risk, decision, and change slowly and cautiously. People with direct behaviors, they approach decisions, change more quickly and more spontaneously. So automatically, think in your head, do I take my time? Am I more cautious when I'm approaching risk and change and decision? Or do I more quickly make that decision? I want you to think about that. People with indirect behaviors, they're infrequent contributors to group conversations. Usually, they're not going to contribute until they're asked or until it's their turn. Whereas people with direct behaviors, they're just going to tell you like it is. They're going to jump in. They're going to be the first people to talk. Hey, let me tell you something. So that's important. And also, people with direct behaviors, they tend to dominate the conversations too. So just understand that. People with indirect behaviors, they don't use as many gestures as the people with direct behaviors. In other words, they're not as animated. Okay, so if you have more direct behaviors, you're more animated. You tend to move around a lot. You know, you tend to express your body motions and so forth. How many of you are thinking, I wonder where I am, huh? Also, people with indirect behaviors, they tend to be more patient and cooperative. If you have indirect behaviors, you tend to be more patient and cooperative. Whereas people with direct behaviors, they're less patient and they're more competitive. So keep that in mind. People with indirect behaviors, they're less confrontational. People with direct behaviors are more confrontational. They will confront you about an issue. They have no problem with that. People with indirect behaviors, they're more reserved. They don't want to go and confront a person with a particular issue. People with indirect behaviors have a more gentler handshake than people with direct behaviors. People with direct behaviors, they have more of a firm handshake. And also, people with indirect behaviors, they tend to ask qualified statements. In other words, according to my sources, or I think so. Whereas the people with direct behaviors, this is how it is. They just tell you exactly how it is. They don't make qualified statements. Okay, based on that information there, if you think you're more indirect, I want you to move and go to this side of the room. Or if you think you're more direct, I want you to go to this side of the room.
Okay, that's the first part to discovering your color and the color of others. And obviously, since you're not at the live seminar, you don't have to go to different sections of the room. Okay, well, what did you find out? Are you more direct or indirect? By the way, let me go ahead and clarify this horizontal line. For those of you who are actually drawing out the horizontal line that we talked about at the seminar, if you get a piece of paper and just draw a horizontal line straight across, at the far right-hand side, that's where you're going to write direct. And at the far left-hand side, that's where you're going to write indirect. So let's quickly review the differences between indirect and direct so that way you can make sure you pick where you fall within this range, whether or not you fall more direct or more indirect. Okay, let's take a quick look at the differences between indirect and direct, just to make sure we clarify this point with you. Okay, people who are indirect, they approach risk, change, and decisions more slowly, whereas people that are more direct, they tend to approach risk, change, and decisions more quickly. As a matter of fact, people that are more indirect, they move at a slower pace, whereas people that are more direct, they move at a faster pace. The handshake of people who are indirect tends to be more gentle, and the handshake of people that are direct are more firm. People who are indirect, they're more patient than the people who are direct. Also, people who are indirect, they keep their opinions private, whereas people that are direct, they offer their opinions freely, even when you don't ask them. The people who are indirect, they tend to follow rules. In other words, they will ask in advance before they do something, whereas the people that are more direct, they tend to bend the rules. In other words, they'll just go ahead and do it, and then they'll beg for forgiveness if necessary. People that are more indirect, they're what we call our introverts. More shy, more quiet and so forth. Whereas people that are direct, they are what we call our extroverts. These are people that are more outgoing and so forth. Another way of explaining this, people that are more direct are what we call our type A personality styles, whereas people that are more indirect are what we call our type B personality styles. Which fits you better? Are you more direct or are you more indirect? And remember, all you want to do is just go with your first feeling. Don't say, well, you know what? I'm indirect and I'm direct also. Of course, you're a little bit of both, but which one do you tend to fall into the most? Just by you figuring out this aspect of it, whether or not you're more direct or indirect, will automatically eliminate two other styles because there are two colors that are direct and there are two colors that are indirect. For example, if you're more direct, guess what? You've just probably eliminated those other two styles that are not direct. In other words, the two styles that are indirect. Okay, so now we have this horizontal grid, right? This horizontal axis. Now what I want you to do is right in the middle of that horizontal axis, I want you to draw a vertical line going straight down. And at the very top of that vertical axis, I want you to write open. And at the very bottom, I want you to write self-contained. And this deals with a person's emotions. Do they tend to share their emotions more freely or less freely and so forth? So let's return to the seminar and talk more about this open and self-contained behavioral concept.
If you have more open behaviors, you share your feelings more freely. To where if you have more self-contained or reserved behaviors, you keep your feelings private. You tend to keep them to yourself. You only share them with people on a need-to-know basis. If you have more open behaviors, you make most of your decisions based on feelings. You hear people talking about, I just got this feeling. That's people with more open behaviors. I just got this feeling. It's a gut feeling. You're more subjective. Whereas you make decisions if you're more self-contained based on the facts, based on evidence, based on logic, so to speak. More open behaviors, you're more relaxed and warm. If you have more reserved or self-contained behaviors, you're more formal and proper. So either you're more relaxed and warm or you're more formal. The people with open behaviors, they're opinion and feeling oriented. Whereas the people with self-contained behaviors, they're fact and task oriented. They want to get to the task. They want to get to the duty at hand. Whatever it is they want to take care of, let's get down to business. Another thing that's important is people with open behaviors, they're more flexible the way others use their time. So if they're talking about a particular issue, they will tend to gear off into another subject if the person wants to gear off to another subject. Whereas a person with more self-contained behaviors, they tend to want to stick to the task, to want to stick to what's at hand. People with open behaviors, they have a more friendlier handshake. You can feel the warmth in their handshake. People with self-contained behaviors or reserved behaviors, they have a more formal handshake. People with open behaviors show more enthusiasm than the average person. People with self-contained behaviors, they show less enthusiasm than the average person. So those concepts there that we just talked about, think about if you're more open, or you more self-contained or reserved.
Okay, what I want you to do is answer that question. Are you more open or self-contained? Once again, let's review. People that are more open, they're more relaxed and warm, whereas people that are more self-contained, they seem to be a little bit more tense and a little bit more cold and so forth. People that are more open are more people and relationship-oriented, whereas people that are more self-contained are more task-oriented. People that are open are more feeling-oriented, whereas people who are self-contained are more fact-oriented. People who are open are more spontaneous, and people who are self-contained are more structured. People who are open are more flexible about their time. And what that means is people can interrupt them and pretty much gear off the subject at hand, whereas people who are more self-contained are more disciplined about their time. So in other words, they have a hard time when people are just getting off the subject. They call that wasting their time, so to speak, and they really don't like that. People who are more open, they share their feeling more openly, whereas people who are more self-contained, they hide their feelings. So, based on that information, where do you tend to be more of? Just go with the first thing that comes to you. That's the important thing. Don't spend too much time thinking about it because that's going to throw you off. Just the first thing that you say, I think I'm more self-contained. Fantastic. Go there. Okay, now with the information that you now have, you have the two axes. The horizontal axis, which talks about the direct and indirect, and then you have the vertical axis that talks about the open and self-contained. Now, once you have this information, it's very easy for you to determine what color you are. Because if you look at your grid, if you've been drawing this grid out, or for those of you who have the Magic of Colors action guide, you can look in the action guide and find out and see this grid yourself and basically be able to follow through with that. And if you don't have an action guide and want one, just look at the front of the tape that you have, and it should have our phone number and address on it. Okay, let's go back to this information about understanding that now you seem to have 4 different sections in this grid, because you have a section that is open and indirect, which is the top left-hand corner of your grid. Those are our yellows. The people who are more open and are more indirect are what we call yellows. Okay, now take a look at the very top of the axis where it says open, and then look at the very right where it says direct. Now, right there is where we have the blues. At the upper right-hand corner of the box is where you write blue. And then if you look at the very bottom, it says self-contained, and at the very left, it says indirect. So self-contained and indirect is what we call our greens. So you can go ahead and write green there. Now at the very bottom, which is self-contained, and at the right, which is direct, we have our reds. Okay, we're getting ready to go back to the seminar, but man, I know you've been getting a lot of information. We got a little bit more to go. So what I want you to do is I want you to just relax and stretch for a little bit. Take this little mental break. It's only going to be 30 seconds. Then I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that mental break. I know you probably needed it. Let's go back to the seminar and give you an overview of all the colors. And as a matter of fact, why don't we start out with the yellows?
Yellows, man, I love dealing with yellows. This is great. The yellows are people, first of all, who are more open and are more indirect. Being that they're more open and more indirect, these are some of the most friendliest people on the planet. They love establishing relationships, and they want to establish relationships first. Don't try to go directly into business with them first. These are people who are some of the best friends on the planet, too. They will do about anything for you. And they're so open and indirect, they do not want to start any confrontations. They hate confrontations. And so they will do almost anything to avoid confrontations. These are people who are really into nature. These are people who want to save the whales. They want to save the rainforest. These are people who want to go home and take off their clothes and just relax. They would prefer to walk around naked if they could. I'm talking on the planet. If they could, they would. If you go into her office or anything, you tend to see pictures of the family around. They got a lot of family pictures and so forth. They tend to have plants or something around, too. They would have plants or flowers or something nice like that. And remember, since they're so family-oriented, they tend to be the people that have the pictures of their families, too, in their pockets, in their wallets and so forth. They have the pictures of the family, and they want to talk to you about their family, and they're so close to the family. They like to share. Key words to them are share, help. They want to help people. They like feeling like they're part of a team. They like the team environment. Team is very important to them. And they want to see how they're going to be able to build relationships from a situation. Now, here's some other things to know about the yellows. Since they tend to be less confrontational, they tend to have other people walk all over them. Because the yellows, they do not like confrontation so much. They'll avoid it, they'll run away from it, they'll do whatever they can, or sometimes they'll just submit to whatever the other person is talking about. And so there's a particular color that loves to walk over people too. And we'll talk about that color in a second. And it so tends to happen that the people that like to walk over the yellows, those are the people that the yellows end up marrying. It's amazing how that works. And we'll talk about that. Is there anything else about yellows that you can think of based on what I just told you guys?
They're warm.
They're warm, exactly. Very warm, very open. You can make a conversation with them very easily. They like hugs. They love to hug. These are touchy-feely people. Oh, and Irish says that they're the best. Yellows, they have a reputation of being some of the best lovers. Because these are the people that want to get very romantic. They want to have the candlelit dinners and everything. They want to get to know you first. You can't just jump right into it. You see? You got to romance them a little bit first. And so understand that about yellows. And they're very touchy-feely, so they tend to get their feelings hurt very easily. Now, they hate people that are pushy. That's one of the things they don't like. They don't like pushy people. People that are obnoxious and very pushy and so forth. So that's the yellows. They got some of the most incredible smiles, too, on the planet. Oh, they smile very well. Now, let me ask you this. Do they tend to be the sales types or the non-sales type?
Non-sales.
The non-sales type. But see, in network marketing, we tend to have a feeling that it takes the sales type to do this business. See, this is not necessarily a sales business. It's a teaching and nurturing business. That's one thing we all have to understand. This is a teaching and nurturing business. And who are some of the best teachers and nurturers? The yellows. These tend to be the people that are in the teaching professions. They tend to be the people, now don't get me wrong, every profession is every color. But a majority of the teaching professions can be found to be yellows. A majority of the professions who are counselors, social counselors, people who are in the health professions, these type of people tend to be yellows. What type of cars do they drive? They want to drive something that's nice and comfortable, nice little sedans that are nice and comfortable. It has to be very comfortable. Yes, when you come to the vans, you remember the hippies? A lot of the hippies were yellows. Back in 1960s, they drove around in their Volkswagens. Exactly. These are the people that really fell for the reach out and touch someone commercials. They said, I haven't called my mom in ages. And so they picked up the phone and called. But
we had to stand up for ourselves.
yeah, because they're more flexible. Because they basically want to give the other person what they want. So they're more open to that. Yes, they're really good at walking. And speaking of shoes, they like to wear moccasins. They like to wear Birkenstocks. Remember I said they would prefer, look at that, Birkenstocks, exactly. Look at that, exactly. Yeah, they like to dress in more relaxed clothing. So understand that being this is a teaching and nurturing business, yellows tend to be teaching and nurturing. They tend to be the people that can build some huge organizations. But they tend to be the people not to have the self-confidence in themselves to think they can. Because they think it's a sales business. Okay, let me show you something in regards to the blues here. Blues, their main motivating factor is fun. They want to have fun. If it's not fun, forget it. Don't deal with them if it's not fun. Now let's take a look at blues. Blues tend to be, they're more direct and they're more open. Is that true? They're more direct and they're more open. Now these are people that we call expressives. They like to talk. These are people that are going to contribute to the conversation. They're probably going to be one of the first people talking. And they're not going to ask you for something. They're just going to tell you. They're going to tell you like it is. Let me tell you what happened to me today. This is one of the things that they want to say. So when you're dealing with the blue, understand that since their main motivating factor is fun, if you're not talking about how it's going to be fun, whatever it is they're doing, they're not going to do it. Forget it. And if they start doing it and they lose their fun with it, guess what? Yeah, they want to go somewhere else. And these people are some of the most spontaneous people on the planet, too. They're very spontaneous. They tend to be the ones that jump from one thing to another. And they tend to be some of the most disorganized people in the world. But you know what? They're disorganized in an organized fashion. In other words, you go into their room, you go into their office, you see all these stacks of papers all over the place. You have stuff all over the place. And you know what? You go in there and you come and try to clean stuff up. Let me clean this up. And they come in here and they say, John said, what happened? What happened? They said, I just thought I'd clean some of this stuff up. No, I don't know where nothing is. Because they knew exactly 7 papers underneath that one stack over there. They know exactly what's there. And it's amazing. Other people can't understand it. They're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. This person is completely disorganized, don't know what they're doing. But they know what they're doing. And blues are the best promoters on the planet. They are promoters because they like to talk. They're not afraid to talk to people. They will be the ones to initiate the conversation. So you need the blues in your business because they're going to be the ones to go out there and talk. And when they talk, it's one of the sad things is they exaggerate a lot. Never. They tend to exaggerate a lot. That's why they're the best promoters. But blues, they have this charm about themselves. They are some of the most persuasive people on the planet. They are some of the best storytellers around. They can tell stories really, really well. They will grab the stories that Andy was talking about, man, and they can just really do well with the stories. They just got to control themselves sometimes and hold back a little bit. They get a little carried off sometimes, a little carried away. They're very animated, right? These are people that are animated. These are the people you're going to see telling jokes a lot. They're going to be laughing a lot. These are people that are always moving around and so forth a lot. These are people that throughout the whole day, they've been thinking, man, we've been really getting some detailed stuff here. We've been getting into it a little bit. I got to have some fun. So I said, man, because we normally do this the next day, tomorrow. But I said, man, we got to break this up. We got to give these people some fun here. Okay? And so that's the thing about the blues that you got to understand there. What kind of cars do they like? Man, they like fast, man. They like these fast sports cars. They want to get from point A to point B yesterday. They want to go. That's the thing. Because they're always moving. They're on the go. Yes?
Some of us would rather have transporters than cars.
Yes. Yeah. They're people that are really into the Star Trek stuff. Beam me up, Scotty. Right now. I want to get there right now. Also, since they're open, they are very much into relationships too. So understand that. They do like dealing with relationships. You want to deal with relationships first with them also, just as the yellows. Deal with relationships. Don't get directly into the business. Let them talk their piece. All you got to do with a blue, and I do this a lot with a lot of blues that call me on the phone. But what I do is there's this one blue that calls me, and I'm telling you, I can say, the first thing they say, hey, Jerry, what's going on? I say, hey, how's it going? And I put the phone down and go down and get something to eat. And then I come back, and I say, oh, really? And then I put it back down. And I go and I come back later, and about 3 hours later, they're done. Andy, that's why I got 4 lines in my home. I have about 3 of them going with the blues. So understand that, though. It's just so important to understand that they like fun. They're motivated by fun. These are people that they would rather see the big picture than for you getting into the details with them. They don't care too much about the details, nitty-gritty. They don't care all the ingredients, specific ingredients in a product. They don't care about all that stuff that doesn't matter to them that much. They want to give them the overall picture. Tell them how they can have fun, how they can enjoy it, and what can happen, and who's already doing it right now. So that's a little bit about blues. Okay, the greens, the main thing you need to know about the greens, these are people, first of all, who are more indirect and are more self-contained or more closed. And the one thing about greens you got to realize is that their main motivating factor, one of the things that they want the most, is they want to make sure they're right. So being that they want to make sure they're right, they go through a detailed analysis to make sure they have all the facts to make sure they're making a proper decision. These are people who are very detail-oriented, in other words. They're very fact-oriented. It takes them longer to come to decisions simply because they're analyzing everything. Because the one thing they don't want to be is wrong. But once they make a decision, they stick with it. Because once again, they don't want to feel like that they make the wrong decision. So the greens are going to be the people that you're going to have the hardest time getting in your business. Don't expect them to look at the business and get started in it overnight. It's not going to happen that way. It's very rare that they do that, just like that, unless they already have a really strong relationship with you over a period of time already. These are people who don't care for hugs that much. Don't go around trying to initially go give them a hug, because they don't care about that. They're not the touchy-feely type people. What kind of occupations are green normally found in? Yes, these are the accountants. These are the scientists. These are the engineers. These are the computer programmers and so forth, the computer people. Remember, we all have all the same colors. People are in all different areas. Let me ask you this. If you're having brain surgery, would you rather have a green or a blue? A green. Exactly. The green, they're going to make sure they're very specific and very detailed. And yes, hand me the next instrument, please. The blues, man, they're like, hey, man, is it lunch? Time to get out of here. Hey, see you. I hope you'll be all right. See ya. What kind of cars do greens tend to like? Yeah, something very economical. Exactly. Something very economical. And something that's reliable. So they go ahead and do all the consumer report studies when they're looking at their cars to make sure they're making a proper decision. And instead of going out and paying $125,000 for a Mercedes or something, they're going to go and buy a nice Volvo. Because instead of spending $125,000 on a Mercedes, and they analyze the situation and say, well, $125,000 for a Mercedes, and let's see here, gas mileage for that would be that, but look at, I can buy 3 Volvos for that price. 3 Volvos is going to last me at least 3 times as long as a Mercedes. I think this is going to be the most proper decision to make, is to get the Volvo instead of this Mercedes. Understand that they want the facts. They like outlines of exactly what's going to be taking place. When are we having our breaks? When are we having lunch? When are we having dinner? And if you fall 2 minutes beyond that, they get upset. I can't believe these people are completely disorganized. They don't know what they're doing. These are the people when we came in this morning, they didn't see exactly what we're going to be doing when we're taking the breaks. And they're thinking, oh my goodness, what's going to be taking place today? Oh, I can't believe it. I don't know exactly when to schedule my next break in order to go to the restroom. You know, they schedule everything. Everything is scheduled, and they carry daily planners a lot, too. These are people that probably already have the power line system, David. And they really will utilize it. The greens, they tend to overanalyze sometimes, so they become paralysis by analysis. They tend to become paralysis by overanalysis. So that's one thing to understand there. Now, let's go into the reds, and we'll be wrapping this up. These are people who are more direct and are more self-contained, more closed, more reserved. As a matter of fact, I'll fall in this category. But I'm hidden because some of you would think I'm over here. Because, see, I know how to be a little bit more open. See, the people that are more self-contained, they can spot it. They know that I got a lot of self-contained features to me. But, see, what I have to do is I got to appeal to these people over here. So I got to act like I'm more open. I got to have that behavioral flexibility. Remember, tension is down. Cooperation is what? Is up. So you got to learn to be flexible. I can really look at Brian when he first came in. I knew Brian was a red. Reds are what we call our suits. These are our power players. These are people who are really motivated by money. Just about more than anything else, they're motivated by money and they're motivated by a challenge. These are some people who are very productive in society because they work so hard. They're what we call our workaholics. They tend to work and work and work and work. They will work very, very hard. These are the people that when they came in here and they started looking at what was taking place, they get a little upset. Can't they just focus on business? Can't they focus on taking care of business and teach me exactly what I need to know? They want to get right into it. They don't care about all this other mess. Don't be playing around with me. Show me exactly what I need to do. I came here to learn what I need to do in the quickest time I can learn how to do it so I can get out of here and be gone. Don't go up and try to hug these people. They're not into hugs and they're not into crying. They don't understand how someone can cry in public. They can't believe that. How can someone cry in public? Man, and who tends to be the people that want to cry the most in public? The yellows, right? The yellows and then the blues, because they're more open. And so what do? When they see someone crying in public, they look at them and they go, man, I can't believe this. Man, these people are dysfunctional or something. They're crying in front of people. I can't believe that. Mr. Howard is over here. Yeah, exactly. These people are the controllers. These people, what occupations do you typically find these people? CEOs of corporations. They own their own businesses. They're presidents of companies. Yeah, they're leaders and so forth. These are people that they want to be in control. That's one of their main things. They want to be in control. And they are very task-oriented. Did you hear me? Task-oriented. Just like the greens, they're more task-oriented, not relationship-oriented. They don't care if you come in and start talking about your family for 5, 10, 20 minutes. They don't want to know about that. What do we need to take care of? What needs to be accomplished? Here are the steps to doing this. Let's get it done. It's supposed to have been done yesterday in the first place. Why isn't it done now? You see what I'm saying? They're productive. They want things done. They want it done yesterday, not tomorrow. So understand that when you're dealing with these reds here. In reds, they have very big egos. E-G-O-S. Very big egos. So what you got to do is you got to fluff them. This is how you're dealing with a red. You got something we call fluff, fluff, slam. You fluff a red a couple times and then you slam them. Brian, let me tell you, you tend to have some characteristics of someone that can be very successful in this business. You tend to be the one I can tell. You seem to be very productive, and I really like the way that you take care of business. But you know what? In regards to this event, I know you got other things to take care of and all that type of thing, so I don't know if you can even make it here Friday. I don't know if you can make it. I don't even know if you can get someone here Friday night. I don't think you can do it. Brian is saying, man, I'm getting someone here Friday. What is this guy talking about? I can't do it. Me? I'm the only one that can do it. What are you talking about? No one else is going to do it. Now listen to this. Reds tend to marry who the most? They tend to marry yellows the most. Why is that? Because yellows put up with them. Yellows tend to be the only ones that can put up with the reds. And the reds, they like to walk over people and like to control people, and they like people to treat them like a king. Right? They like people to treat them like a king. Yes, Lottie, my name is Jerry. Hi. I'm glad you can meet me. You guys see what I'm saying? So it's very important that you make sure that you understand these basic concepts when you're dealing with these colors. Now, let me show you how to be a little flexible. First of all, since we said that reds like to marry yellows, who do greens tend to marry? Blues. Exactly. Because, see, greens, they tend to have a very boring life, and they need someone to liven them up. Now, let me tell you the problem here. We got conflicts. Can we see the conflicts already? See, blues like to have fun. Blues, they like recognition. They like approval. They like, people to, give them recognition and everything. Greens, they like to be perfect, right? They like everything to be just right. Now, here's the problem. Blues, they're waiting for the recognition from the greens, but the greens are waiting for the blues to be perfect. The blues aren't going to be perfect, and so the greens end up getting depressed. And that's where you have some conflicts there in between these groups. See, the yellows, they like to take their time and do things. They like to take their time, and they want to really romance the situation. And I'm talking romancing in all ways, in professional relationships, in other words. They like to take their time and deal with relationships first, is what I'm saying. They want to get to know you first. Whereas these reds, man, they forget getting to know you. I don't care who you are. That doesn't matter. I mean, you should be privileged to be in front of me. And that's their attitude there.
Well, there you have it. That's an overview of the colors. Now what we're going to do is find out how to become more adaptable. I call this becoming a chameleon. I mean, why is this important? Well, about 35% of our population are yellows. About 15% of our population are blues. About 35% of our population are greens. And about 15% of our population are reds. What does that mean? That means that every person you come in contact with, depending on what color you are, you have between a 65 to 85% chance of creating more tension than cooperation if you follow the golden rule to the T. Remember, we're going to be talking about the rainbow rule, which says don't do unto others the way you would like to be done unto, because if you do that, remember, you have a 65 to 85% chance of creating more tension. So what you want to do is do unto others the way they would like to be done unto, and that's the rainbow rule. And the way we do that is by learning how to become a chameleon, so to speak. It's called the Art of Adaptability. I thought it would be nice to give you a good overview here. So let's go back to the seminar in Los Angeles and learn about the art of adapting.
So let's look at adaptability here. When a yellow is dealing with the yellow, we have the golden rule. That's fine for them to apply the golden rule. Can't you see how that'll work now? Do unto others the way they would like for them to do unto you. So if you're dealing with another yellow, do unto them the same way you like them to do unto you, and you're okay. You're both open. You're both indirect. That's fine. You both like to go at a slower pace. That's great. You guys both like to deal with relationships first. Great. But the thing is when you're dealing with two yellows, you got to make sure you don't overdo it. Because that's all you end up doing is talking about your family. Oh, let me show you my great-grandkid, too. Let me tell you the one I'm going to have 20 years from now. You see? So that's important to understand that, too, though. So when your yellow is dealing with a yellow, you're okay. When a yellow is dealing with a blue, what do you have in common? You're both open, so you both like relationship. That's fine. Now, the thing is that the yellows, they have a slower pace, though, because they're more indirect. The blues have a faster pace. The yellows, what you got to do when you're dealing with a blue, go ahead and let them talk more. That's fine. And understand that they're going to come off as a little obnoxious to you. And you got to understand that's how they are, though. And another thing you got to deal with them is you got to let them understand how whatever it is they're dealing with is going to be fun. You got to let them know that. So understand they're more direct. They have a more faster pace, so you got to speed up your pace a little bit. That's the way you're going to actually have more behavior adaptability with them. Now, yellows, when you're dealing with reds, you're dead. Understand this, yellows. This is very, very important. You guys are indirect, reds are direct. So first thing you got to do is speed up the pace for them. Because you guys have a slower pace, they have a faster pace. Another thing is you guys are more open, they're more self-contained, which means that they're more task-oriented, you're more relationship-oriented. Get straight to business when you're dealing with reds. Stop all the little chit-chat, speed up a little bit, get straight to business, what you're calling for, what you're dealing with, what you want to accomplish immediately. Okay? Because if you're going too slow, reds look at that as incompetent behavior. I'm serious. That's how they look at it. They look at people being incompetent if they go too slow. They look at people as being incompetent if you don't speed up and get right to the business. If you're crying in front of them and stuff, they think that's incompetent. As a matter of fact, when you're crying in front of a red, it doesn't even affect them. I mean, a yellow can start crying and bawling, thinking that it's going to break them down a little bit. But they can't even relate. Like, man, what is this person doing? And they get even upset. It's like, man, after you're done crying, are you done now? That's what the red said. Are you done now? Okay, let's get back to the situation. That's exactly what they're going to do. So understand that. You got to fluff their egos. Remember, they like to be the kings and queens. These are the kings and queens over here. So you got to fluff their ego, but if you can utilize the fluff, fluff, slam technique. Because they like challenges. Remember, utilize the fluff, fluff, slam technique. It will work very well with these people. Very well. Let me give you an example. I was sitting in a seminar, and I was over here, and I had already knew about this. We had talked about this about 15 times. I had been to 15 of these seminars that talked about these colors. And so I already knew what the person was going to say to me. She came up to me, and she was talking about the different colors, and she said, for example, Jerry, for example, is red. Jerry, I had never done $40,000 in personal volume in one single month. In personal volume. I had never done that in one single month. I always got up to 30, 36. I mean, right there, but I didn't break that barrier, that $40,000 barrier. And so she came up to me, and I already knew this. Think about it. This stuff still works when you know what the people are doing to you. She came up to me, and she said, we all know that Jerry has some skills and characteristics, and he's basically, is a doer in this business. But you know what? I don't think he can ever do $40,000 in business in 1 month. That month, I did $40,150 in personal volume. That month. And I knew what she was doing to me, but it motivated me so much. Brian is going to have somebody tomorrow. Watch. Because, that's how it's going to happen. Tomorrow evening at the showcase. Watch. Brian's going to have a guest. I don't know if he really can pull it off, but hey, he may. Okay? Now, yellows, when you're dealing with greens, yellows, understand you both are what? Indirect. Being that you both are indirect, that's great. You both have a slower pace. That's what that means, okay? You both have a slower pace, so that's fine. But guess what? They're more self-contained, more reserved. You guys are more open. Being that they're more reserved and more self-contained, you guys are more open, you got to get right to the task a little bit, just like the reds. Get right to business with them. But you can do it at a slower pace than you can deal with the reds. You can do it at a slower pace, but you want to get directly to business. You want to make sure they get the facts. Give them the facts. Understand, they're going to want the facts. They don't care too much about establishing relationships first. That's the thing you got to remember with them. Get them the facts. Don't feel bad when they want the facts because they're going to want a stack of facts. And that's all you can do with them is give them whatever they want. Now, blues, when you're dealing with yellows, you guys are both open, but you guys are more direct. You need to slow down for the yellows. Okay? You need to slow down because you come off as too obnoxious. That's the important thing. Slow down with them. Deal with relationships like you already do. That's fine. And another thing that you want to deal with the yellows is just understand you got to let them talk a little bit more. See, because you guys want to dominate the conversation. Let them talk a little bit more. Ask them for their opinion because that's the only way they're going to give it to you. They're not going to go and just express and jump in and just, interject because they're some of the best listeners on the planet, the yellows. So understand that you're going to want to ask for their opinion and let them talk so you can get out of them what they want. That's important. Blues, when you're dealing with the reds, you're both direct, so you both have a faster pace. But you guys are more relationship-oriented. They're more task-oriented. Get to business and stick to business. And these people like to be the issue because they are the issue, right? As far as reds are concerned, they're the only people that exist on the planet. You know what I'm saying? The planet was built for them. They're the people that says, okay, the meek may inherit the earth, but not its mineral rights. So understand, blues, when you're dealing with reds, remember, get right to business and stick to business because blues, you have a tendency to get off the business and go somewhere else. Stick to business with them. Don't go off. Blues, when you're dealing with greens, what you want to do is this. Number one, they're more indirect, you're more direct. You got to slow down your pace. Slow down your pace when you're dealing with a green. That's the thing you got to realize. Also, they want the facts. You don't like facts that much. You don't care about that. But they want some facts. They're going to want some details. They're going to want documentation because to them, documentation beats conversation. Understand that. You guys are more relationship-oriented. They're more task-oriented. Stick to business, slow down, give them the facts. Reds, when you're dealing with blues, what you got to understand is you got to let them talk a little bit more. They're going to jump to subject and they're going to go somewhere else. You need to let them go somewhere for a couple of minutes. It's okay. Establish a relationship with them first because they want to deal with relationships. They don't want to get directly down to business. And let them talk because they will talk. Reds, when you're dealing with greens, understand when you're dealing with greens, you need to slow down your pace a little bit because they're not as fast. They both want to deal with business. The greens want to deal with business directly just like you guys, so that's great. But they're a little slower than you guys, okay? And understand that it's going to take them longer to make decisions and so forth. So understand that too. And you got to let them go through the process. Show them how step by step something is going to benefit them. The language you got to talk to the greens, you guys, is step by step, detailed analysis. You know, this type of stuff, factual, logical. I'm telling you, by getting to this event, what you're going to find out is, first of all, you want to bring 5 notebooks because it's going to be packed with verifiable facts. There's going to be so much knowledge and information that you can analyze that you will know directly how much time you will be able to put into this business and how much money you can make based on the time that you have to put into it. And basically, we'll let you know exactly the cost ratio to actually get each distributor started in your business. You'll know exactly how much it'll cost you to do that. Reds, when you're dealing with yellows, oh my goodness. Slow down a lot. Understand that people have feelings. Okay? You know, that's what you guys got to understand. Yellows, they want to be open. Don't exclude them. Don't lock them out. Don't build a wall with them. You got to open up to them. You got to let them feel like they're a part of a team. Remember that? And so you got to help them contribute to conversations by you got to ask them questions and let them talk once again. Don't be so directive and so demanding because they don't like pushy people. And the reds tend to be very pushy with the yellows. Okay, so understand that. Last category and we're done. Greens, when you're dealing with greens, you're fine. All right, that's fine. You guys are both in, paralysis analysis heaven. You guys are in heaven. Understand this, you guys. Remember, there are subcategories. There are subcolors. There's only about 2.5% of the people in the population that are truly red, where their initial color is red and their subcategory is red. And there's only about 2.5% of the population of the people whose color is actually a blue. What does that equal? 2.5 and 2.5. About 5%. These people tend to be the sales type or the non-sales type. About 5% of our population are true hardcore, nothing but sales types. Now, when you're dealing with a green, you're okay. When you're dealing with a red and you're green, what you want to understand is this. You want to stick to the task like you're already used to doing. Speed up with the reds a little bit. That's what you're going to want to do. Let them feel like they're in control too. Greens, when dealing with yellows, understand they're more relationship-oriented, you're more task-oriented, so you got to open up a little bit and be more relationship-oriented. Get to know them. You guys both move at a slower pace, so that's great. Greens, when you're dealing with the blues, speed up. Speed up and let them talk. Understand that they don't care too much about the details, so don't try to give them all the details. They don't care about it. Speak in generalities with them. Kid around with them. Laugh with them. Make sure it's fun. Oh, yeah. Yeah, tell me another one. All right? Let them do that while you're sitting there going, oh, my goodness. All right? So understand the basics here that we just got finished talking about. The main thing that you want to know when you're dealing with the colors and when you're dealing with the different personality styles is, number one, don't go around trying to teach all your people this stuff. That's the first thing. See, this is not a very duplicatable thing here by you going around trying to teach everyone everything. It's not something that you have to know in order to start building your business. This is something you're going to learn as you go through the process. What you want to do is you want to buy books that talks about these personality styles. You want to get tape programs that talk about that. And by getting the tapes and getting the books and videos and that type of thing, you will be able to learn these skills better. And if you want to teach someone else, the best thing to do is give them a tape. Give them a book. That type of thing. That's how you teach them these personality styles. That's the first thing you got to understand. It took me quite a bit of time, probably about 2 years, to really get this stuff. To the point where nobody in this room should ever have another dull moment in their life after you know this stuff. Because even when you're sitting down and nothing is happening, you can just look at people and you start thinking in your mind, yellow, all right. You guys always have something to do. Blue and so forth. You always have something to do. Another thing I don't want you to do is I don't want you to go around telling people, oh, you're red. Oh, you're yellow. Oh, you're blue. Don't go around classifying people, saying that to them, directly. You guys can share it between each other and so forth. But don't go around pointing at someone saying, you're this, you're that. Don't go back to your distributor saying that to them. Yeah, I know what your problem is. You need to speed up your pace. Don't go around doing that. But let me tell you this. Let me end with a story that really puts this in perspective, and we'll be done. We'll go to dinner. I heard this from Tony Alexandra. Back in the medieval time, what happened is you have 4 individuals, they got in big trouble. The king said, these people, they all got to die by the guillotine. So you have 4 people, and guess what? They all tend to be different colors. You have 1 yellow, 1 red, 1 blue, and 1 green. And they all were going to line up at the same time, and they're all going to do a quadruple execution. First time it ever happened before. 4 heads at one, just like that. And what took place is this. You can imagine the 4 guillotines. You can imagine the people, their heads were down there, just like that, ready to die. And all of a sudden, the king said, okay, hit the switch. The guillotines, they started to come down about 3 inches before they really were about to cut off the people's heads. It stopped. Completely stopped. Jam up or something like that. And the king, he thought that was a sign from the heavens above. And he said, you know what? These people, they probably are free. That's a sign. Let them all go. The blue is the first person to get up and go, let's party! The red gets up and says, see, I told you I was innocent. By the way, king, I am suing. The yellow gets up, and the yellow goes over to the person and says, hi, sir. I want you to know that I didn't take this personally. By the way, would you like to have dinner with our family tonight? And the greens, they look up, and they say, oh, I see the problem.
Yes. I laughed too when I first heard the story of the 4 knights who were about to get the guillotine. I thought it was funny, and I thank Dr. Tony Alexandra for sharing that story with me. Well, I know there's a lot of information here, but by now you should have a good idea of what the colors are all about and how you can begin to adapt with them so you can start producing more harmonious and high-powered relationships. You're going to want to listen to this over and over and over again, because what it will do is it will sink into your subconscious all of the basic information about each of the colors, just give you a general idea. But when you want to get specific, of course, that's where you're going to go to the color tapes and be able to get the detailed information pertaining each color. As a matter of fact, if you're ready to go and discover the specific information about the yellows and the blues and the reds and the greens, it's now your time to actually turn to the color tapes. And you're going to be able to get more detailed information. As a matter of fact, you're going to have so much information about all the colors, it's going to be mind-boggling. You're going to say, man, I didn't know this much about people. I didn't even know there was this much to know about people. So why don't you turn your attention now and go discover more about the rainbow rule and how to become a chameleon, because once you do, you will find out for sure that at the end of that rainbow, there is that pot of gold you've been looking for. I'll see you there.